Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast, and welcome to the review show where we have a look back at all of the boxing over the weekend and anything else news-wise that has popped up this week. That is, of course, George Liddard, Keiron Conway at the York Hall, as well as some developments with the Ring Pass and Dazn and Dana White and the Muhammad Ali Act, all that good stuff. Obviously, subscribe for podcasts every single week. It's just me and Ben this week, but that doesn't stop us. Straight into the action. We're going to start off with the sort of news stuff, and then we'll get on to the boxing. So obviously, if you guys are here for George Liddard talk, skip to the end or stick around. The Ring Pass, first and foremost, we'll start with that one. It's been announced, obviously, a while back now. No pay-per-views. Turkey was saying there's going to be no more pay-per-views. Everyone was thinking, mint, a few more pennies in my pocket. They're replacing it with a sort of NFL Pass style model where you pay for a subscription and you get all the pay-per-view or what would have been pay-per-view events under one banner. The pricing hasn't been announced just yet, but what do we think of that?
It's stupid. Like, sports fans in general are just getting absolutely fleeced at the minute, I think. Not just with boxing, but every other sport as well. The amount of different subscription packages you got to pay for to not even have full coverage of the sport. And now with DAZN, you got to pay £15 a month to access DAZN. Then they go, oh, but you won't pay for pay-per-views. But instead, you've got to pay another £25 a month now to get the Ring Pass. Like, sports fans are not that stupid, surely. You can't just go, oh, you're not paying for pay-per-views anymore, but then just change the name of it and make it the same price. Like, surely people are not that stupid.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. So so certainly this year you're looking at getting, I believe it's 15 pay-per-view events or would be pay-per-view events covered under this model. So 15 pay-per-view events is in theory £300 if you're paying for every pay-per-view that's put out there. But people don't want to pay for every pay-per-view that's out there. For example, we're not going to be wanting to pay for the boxing coming up this weekend because it's not a great card. I can catch the fight afterwards. I'll live. Or by other means, as people do. But yeah, I think it would have to be a very reasonably priced subscription for me to justify paying on top of the already quite expensive DAZN subscription. And I just think if we, as people who sit down every single week, talk about boxing, watch every single boxing card every single weekend, whether we want to or not, which we generally do, but even if we didn't, we would watch it anyway because we would for this. At that point, if we're not willing to pay it, you've got to start asking questions about whether it's worth having.
Yeah, and I just don't understand, like, in terms of getting people into sports as well, it's not even just boxing, it's across the board, no matter. You need to make it accessible for people. And if you're, like, this weekend, for example, if we were to pay the £15 for DAZN, the £25 that they're charging for the pay-per-view, which is crazy in itself, considering there's one good fight on the card, that's £40. Most people don't have a spare £40 regardless every month to spend. But then you look to next month with the shows in November. There's some good cards, to be fair. But then if you're forking out £25, and then even going to shows is not affordable. Like, you're spending a good amount of money to get to shows and buy a ticket. So then it's just like, it also has a negative effect on fighters in terms of trying to sell tickets, because at the minute this country is just like struggling anyway. A lot of people are struggling. They haven't got money to just throw on things like this. So sport in general needs to do a better job of making itself more accessible, because ultimately that's the only way it's going to grow.
Yeah, and I think if you look at this weekend in the York Hall, the atmosphere in there sounded brilliant, right? And so many times you watch events, and we spoke about this, it's been one of the main criticisms of the boxing over in Saudi Arabia is that it feels like the fans aren't front and center of that. And you can feel it. You can feel it on the broadcast. You can see it in the arena. It affects the fights to a degree. They don't have that same magic to them when a crowd really gets behind it. And the more I understand, people need to make money. These fighters need paying, and they're not cheap always. And, all of these things, there needs to be a business model. But should the business model be constantly asking for more and more money out of your already somewhat dwindling fan base? Boxing was in a brilliant place this time last year. off the back of some huge pay-per-view events, of which most of them I paid because they were worth paying for. I looked at it and I thought, no, do you know what? For 20 quid, I can deal with not having to buffer or have to find a dodgy website or whatever other means, because the fights were brilliant and worth every penny. And we haven't really had any of those this year yet. Bar, again, I'm struggling off the top of my head. I think Eubank Ben was the last pay-per-view I paid for, to be completely transparent. It was the last one I paid for. And there's been nothing since that's really tempted me to do so.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see the effects now of the Saudi Arabia cards, and as much as we bigged them up and we do enjoy them when they do happen, and it does sound a bit hypocritical to say, oh, we enjoy them when they're there, but now that we're getting this, it's not as great. So
we did call it though, actually.
Yeah,
really early on in this podcast, we said one of the biggest problems with this is it's going to inflate the market, and then when that drive isn't still there, then there's going to be a problem. And I think the issue is they almost went too hot, too hard, too quick. And those cards were too deep and they were too stacked. And all the great fights have been done now. And it's kind of like, okay, what now?
I think that's the only issue is when you set a certain standard, like you said, with some of the cards, especially that we seen last year. Like I think back the 5v5 card, for example, which was $19.99, I think, to buy as a pay-per-view. That from top to bottom was entertaining, stacked full of really good fights, and you sat there from start to finish watching it. If you're going to pay £25 on Saturday, like if I was paying, I'm not going to be paying £25 for the fight on Saturday, and I don't think most other people will either, but if I was to pay for it, I don't even think I'd spend the time sitting down watching the undercard. I'd be purely paying it to watch the main event. And it just, like when you compare then, I will just sit there and think, I can spend my £25 on Saturday night going to do something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things you can get in Merthyr for £25. But,
yeah. But no, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's disappointing. It's difficult. I think obviously the pricing arrangement hasn't been confirmed yet. You know, the Dazn, forgive me, I can't remember who it was, but someone at Dazn spoke out and said, this is what's coming in November. We're getting this ring pass, this subscription-based model. It's going to get the 15, and they haven't got a pricing they've put out for it yet. They said it's going to be very reasonable, but obviously they would. What would the price have to be for you to go, well, actually, I'll pay that?
I suppose it's different for me because we are fans of boxing. We'd sit down and watch it. First of all, when they announced it, I thought it was going to be you'd have to pay for each pay-per-view still, but just under the Ring magazine banner. So I suppose if you're getting all 15 under that, I don't know, you're probably looking at about 150 quid, I would have thought.
What, a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're looking at that. That's £10 per pay-per-view. We're seeing £20 pay-per-views at an absolute minimum. You know, is that what they're going to charge realistically? If you're getting more than one pay-per-view per month, is the idea with the that's the issue though. The benefit of the pay-per-view model was it meant that they could charge money for the fights they knew people would come into in their droves. And I think that's been stretched a little bit now where they just charge for events but then people won't pay it. That's the beauty of the pay-per-view model. If you don't like it, you just don't pay it and you just don't watch it. Like we said for this coming weekend perhaps. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting new model and I think it's framed along a lot of changes and friction amongst the sport. And I think I highly doubt it will look a way that fans will be happy with.
No, I doubt it. I think it will essentially as well turn into, you can obviously buy the annual subscription, which I guess will be cheaper, obviously, to entice people to buy the whole package. Or it'll just turn into, if you don't want to buy the whole package, you can buy the one-off pay-per-view, which is £25.
Yeah.
So it reverts to the same thing. It's just a clever way of getting people to sign up for a whole year for slightly cheaper. Yeah,
it's more consistent money flow, realistically, rather than... But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what that is. Perhaps even more concerningly from my point of view, some other news that has come is that the California State Athletic Commission have voted unanimously to support the Muhammad Ali Revival Act, which is being put forward by TKO Boxing and Dana White, and it's being put through the legal systems in the US in various states, which ultimately means that they could have a UFC style model within boxing. So for people who don't know, the current Muhammad Ali and the Muhammad Ali Act of, I think it was 1996 and 2000, basically prevent promoter also being the manager of a fighter. They require transparency of pay between promoters and sanctioning bodies. And it basically is set up and designed so that fighters don't get rinsed and fighters don't get, used and abused and cash cowed and then, chucked to the wayside, like we saw with the likes of Muhammad Ali and people like, obviously they made phenomenal money, but that's why he put it in off the back of his career. And Dana obviously wants his model, his UFC model within the sport of boxing, and fair play to him for that. That's his prerogative. But where do we stand on this removal of or rewriting of an act brought in by someone, in the background there on the t-shirts in Muhammad Ali?
I think it's a really dangerous thing for fighters and for boxers in particular. There's a reason why that act was put in place, and it's because of people like Muhammad Ali who, if you look back in some of the dodgy dealings that went on, not just with him, but plenty of other boxers as well, who realistically should have made or did make a lot of money in their career, but got fleeced out of actually keeping it. It's a real worry. And I think hopefully we see a lot of boxers come out and speak about this as well, because if I was in their shoes, it's not something I'd be too happy with. Ultimately, they are the ones that are stepping in the ring and putting their lives on the line effectively, because we know how dangerous this sport can be at times. And ultimately, the reason why I think 99% of boxers get into the sport is to earn a living and to make money. And if that gets stripped away, it's again another thing that could lead to real problems within the sport in terms of, is it going to put people off wanting to even take up boxing? And it is going to be a bit of a messy situation, I think, and something that needs to... I can understand what Dana White wants to do in terms of a business perspective, but when you look at the UFC model, I've never seen a UFC fighter that's sat there and gone, I'm happy with how much I'm getting paid for the job I'm doing. It's often they get to the pinnacle of the UFC and then they are calling out the biggest boxing stars because they know that's where the money's at. We've seen it with Francis Ngannou, and you'll see it with others in the future. Conor McGregor was the first one to do it. Conor McGregor made a lot of money, but it was because he almost transcended what the UFC was. He was a star in his own right, and when they start to do that, they realise they can make more money elsewhere. So, yeah, it's a difficult one, but it's something I think they need to be very careful of.
Yeah, like you say, I think on it as a standalone, the TKO boxing ideology of having this UFC style model, I'm not overly against it. I think it's a decision, an opportunity, another option for fighters in their career of how they go. They go, I can go the traditional route, I can go the sanctioning bodies, British Boxing Board of Control, whatever, through to the international bodies, through to world title, etc. Great. Or I can do the TKO model. I can, go into this system and I can work through this. But I think as a president, when you look at it, the fact that the same one person could be the manager, could be the promoter, could be the one sanctioning the fights, could be the person setting the rules and the pay structure, you ultimately own that athlete, and that athlete has no other option. They are fighting for their life, and you are controlling the means every step of the way. Part of the frustration with boxing is that the politics of boxing gets in the way, and I understand that. But ultimately, one of the benefits of boxing is that, for example, the IBF, Matchroom, Lee Eaton, as an example, a promoter, a sanctioning body, and a manager, they all have different things that they are trying to get from that fighter, and that might lead to a conflict of interest. But no one human is controlling every facet of a fighter's career. So for me, I think it, albeit I'm not going to say Dana White's trying to do this, that, and the other. I think he's doing it for a business sense, but it opens the door to some serious problems. And like you said, this was brought in because boxing already is a complete Wild West. it's already, it's not like the cleanest business in the world. And the idea behind this was, if it's not going to be fair, it's at least transparent. And by removing that, then you're going to get into some real trouble, I think.
Yeah, it could cause potential problems for. I'm thinking more as well in terms of the next sort of line of fighters coming through, prospects, like when they're first having to deal with, as they're breaking through, you want someone on your side that's looking after you, and it's not always the case within sport, not always the case within boxing. Sometimes you're there for a payday for some people, and once they've run that money dry, then they'll throw you to the side. It does happen in boxing, but yeah, I think just you need that transparency in terms of the pay, I think, because you don't want to see fighters go through a solid 10, 15-year career and have nothing to show for it at the end of it, because they've ultimately sacrificed so much. And if you've got nothing to show for it by the end, what are you really doing it for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And we'll move away from that, because obviously it's not through, it's not changed, It's not legislation, so it may never happen, and hopefully enough people stand out against it, and I've seen that boxers associations and stuff are, so we'll see what that comes of that. And obviously I'm really interested to see what people at home think about this, or if there are any boxers. I know we get a few people here and there that watch. Let us know what you guys think about this. Is there any concerns from your point of view? And with that, and on to maybe a slightly happier, more upbeat note, some boxing in the York Hall, Matchroom boxing, George Liddard, Keiron Conway, the main event, Tiah-Mai Ayton impressing again on the undercard, Jimmy Sains in a very impressive performance, Taylor Bevan doing the business again. We'll start obviously with the main event, George Liddard put in a performance to a level, we all predicted him to win, I believe, but I didn't expect it to be that comfortable, that emphatic a victory in the end. No,
I thought it was going to be a tougher night for him, but he really showed his levels, I think, because Keiron Conway's a good fighter, really good, and a lot of people seen this as a 50-50, thought that maybe it was too early, but some people have gone down as the youngest British. He's
the youngest British and Commonwealth middleweight champion ever.
I know that
at age 23, which is impressive. It's a young age to be doing it. There has been younger middleweight champions.
Yeah, there's been a lot of dispute around that, but the thing I was trying to get to anyway is the fact that 23, the composure and just the ability and talent he showed on what essentially was the biggest fight of his career so far, the British title fight, against someone who's been there and done it already. And Conway definitely wasn't just turning up to take part, and he would have gone there on Friday night feeling, as a lot of other people did, it's too early for this 23-year-old. I'm going to take him out. But ultimately, I thought George Liddard was absolutely brilliant from the first bell all the way to the stoppage. And I thought he was really good. He just looked really confident as well. For someone at 23, like to have the confidence that he did coming out. We've been to the York Hall as well. It's a lovely venue, but the atmosphere is right on top of it. It's like I could see how that could become a bit too much, but he just looked as if he was completely in his element, and almost he was so confident of what was going to come in the ring.
Yeah, it very much had that feeling of this is my time kind of thing, and I'm turning up and I'm doing the business. And like you said, I was really impressed because I knew, I thought I knew about his power. We all know about his power, and he hits unbelievably hard. And he does have a pretty strong amateur pedigree, a number of national titles, a number of international golds in there as well. So he comes off, but when you see a fighter like that coming through, particularly British, you sort of think, okay, big hitter, but maybe not the best boxer. But I couldn't be more wrong. I think the jab, the speed of the jab, the way he was able to land, get out of the way, and you've still got that really, really big right hand coming in behind it, which obviously was the one that eventually, among a sort of scuffle that got Conway to the floor, and then the towel came in eventually with the hand injury as well. So it wasn't maybe a sort of blast them out of their performance that maybe some people expected or felt that was the way that Liddard was going to win. But actually, I think he won in almost every facet of it. He outboxed him for most of the fight. He was more powerful. He was quicker. And yeah, really genuinely impressed with him. Really impressed.
Yeah, really, really good. I did think that they should have pulled Conway out of there quicker, especially, I think it was the round before he got stopped. He went back to the corner and he was essentially saying he was done. Like, it was his left hand or right hand? One,
I think it was the left.
He'd injured, I think it was the left hand because he couldn't even throw out the jab, I don't think. And they were just, it was incredibly terrible corner work, I thought. But I think so, like, you could see it wasn't the fact that he wanted to give up, but I think he had almost made the decision in his own mind. There's not much I can do here. I'm being beaten already. I've got one hand. I'm essentially going out there at this point to get stopped. And
that's the other thing. He was down on the round, wasn't he? Like, so it wasn't like he just had to hold on.
Yeah, it weren't a close back and forth fight. It was essentially all he'd be doing for the next few rounds is holding out to see the final bell. And the fact that they were saying to him, you can't afford to get stopped, essentially telling him to punch to the back of the head, which isn't great. He is injured. I felt like they should have just looked at him there. And I understand it's a British title fight. It means a lot. He's defending the belt. He wouldn't have wanted to be pulled out. But I think sometimes you need to look at the situation and be a bit smarter there. And ultimately, they sent him out there in that round and he did get stopped. So, yeah, I don't think it was great corner work. But, yeah, the main thing is giving the credit to Liddard, I think, and how impressive he was more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And then Jimmy Sains as well. Another middleweight. Is he a stablemate as well? I believe he is, isn't he? So, you know, they are following a very similar trajectory. It's just that Jimmy Sains is kind of a fight or two behind. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was really impressive against Troy Coleman. That is not an easy opponent. That's not an opponent you can just kind of take as a gimme. And to get the stoppage that early, very impressive again.
Yeah, really good. It was a good night for all the Matchroom prospects, to be fair. But I've seen Troy Coleman fight when he won the English title first time round up in Birmingham, and he's tough fighter. But that's 10 for 10 now, I think, is it? Stoppages
for Jimmy Sains. Yeah, I think so. It might even be 11 for 11 now. I think it is.
Yeah, he's frighteningly scary punch power. But yeah, they're doing a very good job, I think, with Liddard and Sains, where they're almost moving one step behind each other all the way. But be interesting to see if it ever comes a time, since they're in the same weight class, is it going to be a time where they go, look, the two of you are going to have to, but like, it's difficult, isn't it? Because sometimes when people train with each other, they do say, I'm not fighting him. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It might just be the case, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that ever eventually somehow evolves into a fight of some kind
coming about in the future. Yeah, I just had a look. It's 10 for 11. There was one fight he didn't get the stoppage in. But yeah, no, he is certainly a problem in that middleweight division. And speaking of another hard hitting Matchroom prospect, but slightly down in the weights, and obviously in the female category, Tiah-Mai Ayton impressed again to make it 3-0. Like, I think we'd obviously seen the sort of press statement from Matchroom when she first signed, and you look at the pedigree, and I spoke to her and I interviewed her, and I thought, and I've spoken to people as well that had seen her fight as an amateur and said she is the real deal. She's seriously good. And I thought, there's an element of doubt. And you're like, well, how good can they be? But I think she has outworked or outshone my expectations of her so far.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, when you've got Katie Taylor, who is the best female fighter ever
of all time,
yeah, telling you that she is now the best, then there's no better person to listen to. And every time she steps into the ring, she just looks so good. Like, another stoppage win. It's just, yeah, I'm just really excited to watch her career progress and seeing how far she can go, because she's got the potential to be an absolute superstar for Matchroom, I think, over the next 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, this is a fighter that just a couple of fights ago was in with Fran Hennessy, who's obviously moved considerably up in her career. Fran didn't get the stoppage on the night, but Fran's not necessarily that kind of fighter. I thought the stoppage was a little bit soft in terms of, I just thought it was a little bit soon, but the other girl was not trying to fight. I messaged Tia afterwards saying about the stoppage, and she went, she just don't want to fight. Like, I wanted to fight her. She was just running. It was annoying. But that's what you got to do at this stage in your career, is you got to get through these fights, and if you're getting stoppages time and time again, it's only going to be a matter of time before they start feeding you to, or feeding to you, some people with titles on their records, and then near enough, you'll be fighting at the very top. And I think she's so young, but at some point you do have to just go, age is but a number, like just give her the titles.
Yeah, especially within female boxing as well. We've seen a lot of fighters go, probably push to world level, probably within their first 10 fights. I don't know if that would necessarily be the plan with her, because she is young. She's still got plenty of time in terms of being a professional, but I'm really excited for when you see the announcement where she's got what some people may look at as a 50-50 fight, and seeing, because like we've said before, there's levels, even when you get to title fights, world title fights, even within world title fighters or world champion fighters, there is levels between them as well. So it'd be interesting to see how she compares when she comes up against other what are classed as elite fighters, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I'm just looking at the records as well. Obviously, you say how long will it be until she moves up to those higher levels. She's in the same. She's currently ranked on BoxRec 3rd in Britain. You've got the likes of Laura Payne and Megan Redstall are fighting for the Commonwealth. And you've obviously got Nina Hughes as well in that division. But really, I don't think there's a huge amount between her and a British title now. I think you're looking at a British title probably next year. And then at that point, you are starting to look at, well, actually, how many fights is there before you're at world level? Because they're smaller divisions, they're smaller pools of fighters. It'll be interesting to see. And I know she's keen to get going as soon as possible, but it is about having them on that leash and kind of slowly releasing them, and then waiting for that exact moment where it's like, yeah, now's the time to go. Which I'm sure, she's got a big team and Matchroom behind her, so that is it's not a concern about that. Another fighter, Taylor Bevan, very impressive. A stoppage against a tough opponent in its own right. He's another one that I think when moving over, you had expectations from, and he has surpassed those.
Yeah, really good. The shot for the stop as well. I think it was a broken jaw in the end.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
The noise it made when you could just hear the connection on it. But yeah, again, really impressive. The Matchroom have done a really good job, especially with, it seems to be those same 5 or 6. I feel like Giorgio Vizioli's almost the one that's gone now.
Yeah, set to make his first headline.
Yeah, he's headlining
in December, I believe.
But it'd be. Well, these are essentially the future, I think, for Matchroom, and a lot of them, you don't know necessarily how far they're going to go, if they will be world title level, because it's quite still a long way to get there, but I think they've done a really good job of, they're not just winning fights against journeymen, but they're coming in, they're looking really impressive in each performance, look like they're progressing. It's not just chucking them on cards. I feel like with some, you just feel like they get thrown out, keep them busy until they get to a point where they're fighting at area level or British title level and they come a bit unstuck. This almost feels like a group of fighters that they've got a real trust in to go quite far. So yeah, it's looking really good for Matchroom, I think. Yeah,
and we've seen Eddie as well get criticism for how he puts his fighters out there, and people saying, oh, you're pushing them too soon. They said, oh, George Liddard, too soon. He proved what he had to do. We've also seen on the flip side of that, the likes of Cameron Vong and Janae Bostan, people say too soon, and actually they did get found out a little bit to that level. So there is both sides of the argument, but ultimately what Eddie has said in the past is that if you're not winning the fights that I'm giving you, you're not going to be the fighter that I think you're going to be, and therefore we're not going to put the effort and the promotion behind you because you're not the fighter we thought you were going to be. And it's brutal, it's harsh, but ultimately it's probably fair. I'm more than happy to see more fighters tested and pushed than I am protected, because I think we do overprotect prospects to a degree, and there are people that fight continuously against journeymen until just the right opportunity comes, and then they lose it, and then it's right back to square one, see how many journeymen I can fight until someone else gives me an opportunity. And for me, I'd rather see what we're seeing right now, which is 4 or 5 top prospects either putting on brilliant performances or smashing people out of there in tough tests over and over again. And eventually they'll be given that fight where you go, oh, are they the level? And we'll see. And I think that's good.
Eventually you've got to step up and show your worth. And as a promoter, Eddie Hearn or any other promoter, when they're looking at bringing prospects in, when they sign prospects, you're never going to get 100% record with, like, not every fighter you're going to sign is going to go on to be a world champion. You always hope they go in to be, but there comes a point where you've got to step into what is essentially a 50-50 fight and sink or swim effectively.
Yeah.
That is, like, it's a harsh sport sometimes because you see young fighters where, like the Boston, for example, 2 tough fights, and now he's almost, people looking at him as a potential prospect that could break through, and now he's come a bit unstuck, and it's a learning curve for him in a different way to the fighters who won on Friday night. They've got a different sort of path. It's different for everyone, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Pick of the performances?
Oh, I'd have to go George Liddard. I thought he was going to win. I had him to win by stoppage, but I thought it was going to be a bit more of a back and forth. I didn't expect him to be as dominant. I've seen him a few times live now, and he's really impressed me, but you never totally know when, like we've said, when you've got that sort of what is considered a 50-50 fight, you never know what the level truly is until you see him in it, and I thought he looked really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I do 100% agree. My honourable mention would be Jimmy Sains as well, because I think both of those guys were in, on paper, 50-50 fights that could be banana skins, and they both got the stoppage. So they've done the business. They did what they needed to do. I think that pretty much wraps it up for our review show. We'll be coming back later in the week as well for our preview show. So we'll be having a look forward at Parker Wardley and that card and all that good stuff. So stick around to the end of the week. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on Spotify if you're listening on the audio version, or if you prefer, there is just an audio version always on Spotify if that's what you guys prefer. So stick around for all that good stuff. Follow us, etc. We'll see you all later in the week.
Punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.